Gone with the Wind, a timeless classic, an epic romance set against the backdrop of the American South during the Civil War. But beneath its beauty and grandeur lies a darker side. Behind the scenes, Gone with the Wind was plagued by feuds, accidents, and shocking secrets that have remained hidden for decades. What if we told you that some of the most shocking moments from the film weren't scripted, but real-life events that nearly tore the production apart? Stick around until the end for a bonus fact that will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about this American classic. Now, let's dive into 20 shocking, weird, and hidden facts you didn't know about Gone with the Wind. 1. Scarlett's near miss. The search for Scarlett O'Hara was so intense that several actresses were considered for the role before Vivien Leigh. Actress Miriam Hopkins was originally favored for the part, but due to contract disputes and personal issues, Hopkins was eventually replaced by Leigh. Despite the drama, Leigh's fiery audition and relentless pursuit of the role convinced the studio to make her their Scarlett. But that decision caused chaos on set, as the transition between actresses created huge tensions. Second, Gable's reluctance. Clark Gable was not keen on playing Rhett Butler. He initially refused the role, claiming that he didn't want to be known as the heartthrob of Hollywood. One of the main reasons for his reluctance? He hated the idea of wearing a mustache. But despite his reservations, Gable eventually agreed to take on the role, and it became one of his most iconic performances. Little did he know, his reluctance would lead to one of the most memorable and powerful performances in cinematic history. Third, explosive on-set feuds. Tensions between Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable were no secret. Despite their undeniable chemistry on screen, the two stars had frequent clashes. One of the most intense moments came when director Victor Fleming reportedly slapped Vivien Leigh during a particularly difficult scene to evoke the necessary emotions. The animosity was so palpable that many of the film's scenes felt charged with real conflict. The tension between Gable, Leigh, and the director made for a highly volatile set. 4. A dangerous stunt gone wrong. Vivien Leigh's dedication to her role almost cost her everything. During a scene where Scarlett ascends a staircase in a fit of rage, Leigh lost her balance and fell. The injury was severe enough that Leigh couldn't walk for several days. But despite the pain, she pushed through and completed her scenes. This dangerous fall wasn't the only injury on set, but it remains one of the most memorable for showing the lengths she was willing to go for the role. 5th band scene. One of the most shocking scenes in Gone with the Wind was deemed too controversial for its time and cut from the film. The scene involved a brutal moment of vengeance that was considered too violent and graphic for mainstream audiences. The scene was later leaked and caused a public uproar. Critics argued that its removal altered the tone of the film, making the final product more palatable but less impactful. The controversy surrounding this scene lives on as one of the darkest moments in Hollywood history. 6. The curse of the Confederate flag. The use of the Confederate flag in Gone with the Wind has been at the center of fierce debate for decades. The film's romanticized portrayal of the South, combined with its frequent depiction of the Confederate flag, led many to criticize it for downplaying the reality of slavery. While some defended the film as a product of its time, others argue that it perpetuates harmful historical inaccuracies that romanticize a violent and oppressive era. 7. A racist legacy. Gone with the Wind has been accused of portraying racist stereotypes, especially through the characters of Mammy and other black figures. The film's portrayal of slavery is seen by many as overly simplistic and even sympathetic to the Southern cause. Critics argue that the film's failure to address the brutal realities of slavery allows the film to be more comfortable for modern viewers, but at the cost of historical accuracy. This issue continues to haunt the film's legacy. 8. Forbidden romance. The rumored affair between Clark Gable and Vivien Leigh was one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. Their on-screen chemistry sparked whispers of a real-life romance, though both actors denied any such affair. The heat between the two stars was undeniable, but it was also a source of tension. Whether or not the romance was real, their fiery connection on-screen mirrored the dramatic intensity of their off-screen interactions. 9. The lost footage. Many fans don't realize that large portions of Gone with the Wind's footage were lost or damaged beyond repair. Scenes that could have changed the direction of the film were discarded during the editing process, and some of the lost footage was rumored to be far more graphic and politically charged. Had these scenes been preserved, the film's reception might have been even more controversial than it already was. 10th. Fire on set. The film's massive sets, including the recreated burning of Atlanta, were supposed to be carefully controlled. However, during one of the most dramatic scenes, a real fire broke out, threatening to destroy not just the set, but the entire production. Several key props, including priceless costumes and set pieces, were lost to the flames. The fire delayed filming and added yet another layer of chaos to the already troubled production. 11. The costume curse. Vivien Leigh's costumes were both iconic and torturous. The green curtain dress, one of the most famous outfits in film history, caused Leigh intense discomfort. The dress was heavy and tight, often causing her to struggle with breathing during scenes. But it wasn't just the green dress that was problematic. Many of the costumes were poorly designed, causing the actors physical strain that impacted their performances and health. 12th. Rhett's dark secret. Clark Gable's portrayal of Rhett Butler was influenced by real-life tragedy. During the filming of Gone with the Wind, Gable was mourning the sudden death of his wife, actress Carole Lombard, in a plane crash. This loss deeply affected Gable, and the grief he carried with him manifested in his portrayal of the emotionally complex Rhett Butler. His performance, full of sorrow and passion, was shaped by his own devastating loss. 13. The script's controversial line. One of the most iconic lines in cinema history.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Almost didn't make it into the film. Censors at the time thought it was too bold and pushed for the line to be removed. Director Victor Fleming fought hard to keep it in, and it became a watershed moment for Hollywood, signifying a shift away from the strict codes of old. The line is now considered one of the most memorable in film history. 14th disastrous premiere. The premiere of Gone with the Wind was a spectacle, but it almost turned into a disaster. The event was held in Atlanta, and the heat was unbearable for both the stars and the audience. The theater was packed, and many guests, including the stars, were struggling to deal with the stifling conditions. The premiere itself was chaotic, and at one point, several of the film's biggest stars nearly collapsed from the heat. 15. The toxic atmosphere. Despite being one of the most expensive films ever made at the time, Gone with the Wind was plagued by a toxic atmosphere on set. The constant battles between director Victor Fleming, the cast, and the studio made for an intense and difficult working environment. Rumors of favoritism, power struggles, and egos clashing made the production even more difficult for the actors to navigate, adding strain to their performances and personal relationships. 16. A fateful decision. Vivien Leigh's casting as Scarlett O'Hara was a gamble, and one that could have easily backfired. At the time, she was relatively unknown in Hollywood, and many thought her casting was a mistake. But after the release of the film, Leigh's performance received critical acclaim, and she went on to win an Academy Award. But what if the gamble hadn't paid off? The entire film's success hinged on her, and the stakes were high. 17. The final cut. The editing process for Gone with the Wind was as chaotic as the production itself. The final cut of the film was drastically different from the original script, and much of the film was trimmed down to meet runtime and pacing. Some of the cuts were made to avoid controversy, while others were simply due to logistical reasons. The final product, while a masterpiece, was very different from the original vision for the film. 18. The real death threats. As Gone with the Wind gained fame, it also attracted a significant amount of controversy. The film's romanticized portrayal of the South and its treatment of slavery led to widespread protests. The film's lead stars, especially Vivien Leigh and Clark Gable, received death threats from outraged individuals. The threats came from those who felt that the film was either too sympathetic to the Confederate cause or too insensitive to the realities of slavery. 19. Hidden political agendas. Despite being a love story, Gone with the Wind carried deep political overtones. Some critics have argued that the film was a deliberate piece of Southern propaganda, designed to glorify the Confederacy and downplay the horrors of slavery. The film's treatment of race and its portrayal of the Old South have been the subject of heated debates for decades. Was it a love story, or was it an attempt to rewrite history? 20. The Hollywood legacy. Gone with the Wind is still considered one of the most influential films ever made, but its legacy is complicated. The film's glorification of the South, its portrayal of slavery, and its treatment of African American characters have led to criticism and reassessment in the modern era. As Hollywood continues to reckon with its past, Gone with the Wind stands as a reminder of the complexities and contradictions of classic cinema. Bonus fact: the haunted set. Some claim that the Gone with the Wind set is haunted. Actors and crew members reported strange occurrences, including objects moving on their own and eerie sounds in the middle of the night. Some even say that the spirits of those who lived through the Civil War haunted the set, unwilling to let go of the past. Could the film's controversial legacy be the reason for the lingering presence of ghosts?